I would be friends with a gay person. Yes, I'm a Muslim, but I would be friends with a gay person. I do believe there is one God, and I believe there's many different paths to God. I am not a religious scholar, and I'm not an expert on Islam. I'm doing my best, and I'm reading the Quran as often as I can.
Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another episode of Aslama Reacts. I was scrolling on Twitter last night, and I saw a thread about Andrew Tate and his blasphemous comments about Islam. Those of you who are old to the channel know that I supported Andrew Tate's conversion to Islam, and I fully defended them when Muslims were accusing him that he's just being a Muslim for fame. But if Andrew Tate says something against Islam or something that he has less knowledge of, I'm not gonna stay silent on that one. The thread poster limited the account viewership and I couldn't post a full thread. So I'm only gonna be reacting to the bits where Andrew Tate allegedly did not represent Islam correctly in the PBD podcast that happened one day ago. So let's get right into it.
And I've talked about this at length even with atheists, and I try and say that regardless of whether you're an atheist or not, you're thinking of God as a man in the sky, but you need to think of God as a concept as a whole. And once you do that, it's impossible to accept that he doesn't exist, right? I said to the atheists, I said, let's say there was two islands. You're shipwrecked, right? And there's two islands. Both of them are full of savages. On one island, you and your friend are shipwrecked. On one island, your friend goes and he crashes and they kill him and they eat him. And you go to another island, and they want to kill you and eat you, but they don't because it's against their religion. Did God save your life? Who cares? Who doesn't even know the name of their God? But their God said, don't kill shipwrecked survivors. And now you're alive. So their God saved your life. The concept of God in and of itself saved your life.
So the main contention on this was that he represented God as just a concept and not as a reality. He basically said that God as a concept is useful. It's not just a concept that matters, it's a reality that matters as well. The idea of God being real, of Allah being real, is a necessary truth. A necessary being must exist for everything around us to exist. And in Surah Hajj verse number 662, Allah says that, and when you ask, what is Allah? What is the definition of Allah? The chapter 112 of the Quran answers that perfectly.
قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ.
Alright, so the thread said that this next clip justified Andrew Tate saying that being gay is okay. Let's see.
I would be friends with a gay person. Yes, I'm a Muslim, but I would be friends with a gay person because if a full-grown man decides to make a decision, it's his decision to make. But I must protect innocence as a man, so I must protect children. If two full-grown men decide to have a fight, let them fight. If a full-grown man decides to pick on a kid, that's unacceptable. So I must protect innocence. So I agree with the extremism point, but I have no problem with full-grown men doing what they want to do. Maybe some Islamic scholars are going to watch this and get mad at me. I don't have a problem with gay people and being friends with a gay person. I don't care. My problem is when you take a person who is unarmed, who is innocent, who is programmable like a child, and start inflicting your worldview on them.
Alright, so a couple of points to touch on that. First of all, the concept of a gay person that Andrew Tate is portraying is a gay person that does not propagate his views to others, aka children. I would argue that he should not propagate his views to anyone in the public. But let's focus on the point of being friends with a gay person. I mean, there are people who have homosexual tendencies, but they suppress those tendencies for the sake of Allah. You have Brother Paul Williams as an example. There are many other guys. So being friend or looking up to gay persons who don't proclaim their views or who don't practice homosexuality is, I think, in my humble opinion, not a sin. You can be friends with that.
And I want to make one more point. I do believe there is one God, and I believe there's many different paths to God. And I am not a religious scholar, and I'm not an expert on Islam. I'm doing my best, and I'm reading the Quran as often as I can. And it does say that Christians on the day of reckoning will see how close they were to the truth.
Alright, so Andrew Tate actually paraphrases that by saying that he is trying his best to read Islam. You have to take in the context that Andrew Tate has been locked up in the jail for about 1 month and he didn't have the chance to study with an Islamic scholar in detail about Islam. So him saying that there is one God affirms the Islamic creed, but there are no more paths leading to God other than Islam. In the context of Christianity and Islam, both of these ideologies conflict on the matter of salvation, on the matter of worldview, religions, seeing Jesus as prophet or God. So these two cannot be both true at the same time. They are contradictory. Contradictory paths cannot be true at the same time. And Allah Himself affirms Islam as the only path in the Quran.
ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا.
And the Christians and the Jews in the Quran who go to heaven are those ones that existed at the time of Moses and Jesus respectively and followed them in their footsteps. See, a Muslim is someone who submits to God and follows the Prophet of the time. So the people at the time of Jesus, peace be upon him, at the time of Moses, peace be upon him, those people who actively followed them and submitted to the oneness of God are Muslims and will go to heaven. And like Andrew Tate said, he is less knowledgeable on this aspect. And I advise the brother that he should seek an Islamic scholar and learn the true Islamic answers to these questions.
What's the primary function of a religion? And the primary function of a religion, I don't believe is the religion exists so I can live forever. I mean, that's a nice thought. But I think on a macro level, the primary objective of a religion is to restore and contain some degree of traditional value within the society.
I would disagree on this with Andrew. And it is not because I am against him. It is because we should stand on the truth, even if it's against our own brothers, to correct them. The primary objective of Islam is to take mankind back to the worship of their own God, back to the submission of their God. The purpose of a Muslim should be to establish the command of God, Allah, on earth. Yes, moral values of God are important, but what's more important than just the values is believing in the true conception of God, oneness of God, not doing shirk, the greatest sin. And Quran clearly describes this world as a test.
I like to see myself as a person whose respect you have to earn. I like to see myself as a person who has strong, rigid boundaries. I like to see myself as a person who will stand up and say, no, that's wrong. I like to see myself as a person who's not afraid of being shamed by whatever community for saying, I don't agree with that particular ideal. I like seeing myself that way. So if I'm going to see myself that way, then I'm going to naturally align with a religion that operates within that form.
Alright, that's all good. You should be a man of principle. You should not bend your principles just because other people's feelings get hurt. But to choose a religion, the best path is to follow the evidence that this religion is true because this and this. Islam is true because the Quran is preserved. Quran is a miraculous book. There is linguistic miracles. There are other miracles. So there are reasons as to why Islam is the truth. Now let me clarify. I'm not saying that Andrew Tate should not become a Muslim just because he is using those paths. I'm just saying that he should better understand why Islam is the truth. I'm not gonna make takfir on the brother. I'm just gonna advise him to study Islam and why it's true a bit more comprehensively.
And also, another thing I would like to say is the reason you need to but date lots of women when you're younger, so you have choices.
Define the two.
Yeah.
Which is more important, date or sleep, in your eyes?
I feel like you don't really, I think that sleeping with a woman, you learn more about them. It's a closer relationship. So I'd say probably sleep with X amount, not crazy amounts, but I would say that, okay, let me give an example. If I go to the supermarket and pick up an apple, and it's the only apple I've ever eaten, can I really say if it's a good apple or a bad apple? It's the only apple I've ever tasted. It might be sour, it might be terrible, I don't know. Whereas if I try 10 apples, I can tell the differences between apples. I say, what's a good apple, what's a bad apple? I think you need that degree of experience.
Alright, so I have major contentions with that one, with Andrew, and I'm not afraid to say that. See, Tate, it's all well and good to try to rationalize your internal feelings and your moral principles. But the thing is, when you are a Muslim, when you are following Islam, your own wishes, your own emotions, your feelings, your right and wrongs get submitted to the right and wrongs, to the morality of Allah. And according to Islam, you cannot date. It's not an open market. You cannot sleep around. There is a proper system of marriage, of getting to know each other through wali. We align ourselves with the morality that is represented by Allah, that is sent by God. And my advice to brother Andrew will be that he should study Islam comprehensively with an Islamic scholar and with someone who is more knowledgeable than him about Islam to learn how to be a good Muslim and why Islam is the truth. That is my advice from the heart to a fellow Muslim brother. And with that, I'll conclude this video. Let me know down your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be interested to hear them. And inshallah, I'll see you guys next time. Assalamu alaikum.